why gold and silver?
That's why gold and silver. Oh my gosh, you actually answered your question with your question, Mel.
Well, I don't know I don't know that our listeners are going to make the connection.
Well, Hey, folks, welcome to the, I don't know what episode
Silver
we are.
Linings.
It's almost like I've been watching Reacher's show, and it's, season 4, episode 3 or something. I don't know what episode we are of this. I got to talk to my people to find out where we're at. But it is August 18th, Tuesday morning, August 18th. One thing that I've noticed that a lot of people, we always tell them what the price is or where the values are, at that moment, as far as like true value of silver. We never see that, but the COMEX is showing us the numbers every single day. So we talk about that in here. It's interesting that in the comments, no matter what we say prior to telling you what the numbers are right now, we get these people, well, it's just right now, so what does it matter then? It's just the moment that we're actually doing the show.
Yeah.
And so what are our numbers right now, Melody?
Yeah, I'm Melody. This is Greg.
Yep.
This is Silver Linings. Should always introduce herself. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, whatever time you're tuning in on this.
Yep.
Let's see. It is the spot price is $64.26. It's down $1.63 this morning, and then gold is $4,367.60. It's down $50.40. So
it's kind of crazy.
It's fluctuating up and down, but it is trending up.
It does seem to be trending up, but however, it just seems like we'll gain $1.50 on silver, one day, and then the next 2 days it'll take it completely back down again. When I say it, I'm really talking about the criminal element that is actually manipulating the price of. Yes, I said criminal element because these numbers are so fouled up to the true value of what silver really is, and we constantly have to deal with these ridiculous numbers. When you're in this business, which we are, we should, full disclosure, we're precious metals dealers primarily. Our store is incredibly unique. We deal in a lot of different things. Many of them, most people get really excited about. So if you're ever in the city of St. George, one of the locations that you should come to is the Gold Ore Store. And I'm not just saying that. We get really terrific reviews from people who have never been here before. And lately we've been getting a lot of folks from Europe, and, they're starting to come back ever since the
COVID
FIFA
days.
Well, the soccer matches, football matches, have really changed the perspective, particularly a lot of Europeans, when it comes to
of what America is like.
Yeah, what we're really truly all about, and what we're really truly all about is service. Is really in our case, it's about our primary business is basically silver, folks. We have built this business on the incredibly strong back of silver. When you really look at it, and when we first started this business, we actually were selling for a small mint in Salt Lake County, and Melody and I were two of the first salespeople to sell this product. And when we got into this, silver was $5 an ounce. So it tells you, we've been doing this for over 20 years.
Well, just in this month, and within the last 30 days, folks, silver was at a low of $56.29. Mm-hmm. It got to a high of $65.66, and we're hovering at $64.25 as we speak. So it really is trending up, and in the last 60 days, it has fluctuated from, $55 to $65, a $10 spread there. It's been pretty erratic. But if you go back 5 years, the low was $17.81. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and like I say,
$17.81. I can remember selling silver at $18 forever.
oh yeah,
Out the door with the premium.
yeah, we sold at 18 for a long time. We sold in the 20s, of course, for virtually a decade. We were, we used to get real excited about making a 50-cent, profit on, 1 ounce of silver because, it might have gone up 25 cents. So, we could make 50 cents on an ounce. And, back in the day, that was kind of like, you're taking money from me as far as the buyers are concerned. It's been, things have changed dramatically around the world in so many different ways. This town that we work in, St. George, Utah, has, and the whole community, Washington, the surrounding cities, Ivins, all of them. In the last 5 years, we've seen absolutely incredible increases in not only the environment and how it looks, but building. Oh my gosh, the whole entire city's completely changed. They built a brand new $40 million city hall building literally down the street from us. We're on Main Street, by the way, 7 North Main in St. George. They're like 9 Main, South Main. They're literally you can see them from our front of our building. There's been so much that's been done to increase this city. We've gotten a lot of Southern Californians that have moved here. There's been a lot of influence that way, positive and negative, I would say. And by the way, I'm originally a Californian, so that doesn't come by me lightly making that statement. But the positives is that the building growth has been phenomenal. The negatives are the building growth has been phenomenal because our traffic has changed and everything's shifted. So, and also during that whole entire process that we've been experiencing, silver has gone up to $121.65 and gone down in this last, 8 months as low as I think we got down to 35 or 37 is the ultimate low, at least this year so far.
Do you know anything significant that happened in the year 1913 with our money?
Well, in 1913, the Federal Reserve was created.
Okay.
Actually, it was created in 1912 at Christmas. Over Congress hardly anyone was in Congress, and they created this entity called the Federal Reserve, which is a private corporation, and it's not a reserve, and it's not federal.
So this is interesting because in 1913, from 1913 to today, our dollar has lost 96.23% of its value. With the fiat currency.
Yeah, and when she's saying values, she's talking about buying power.
Exactly,
is
buying
really
power.
What we're talking about.
96.23%. And so there's a fascinating website that if you don't know about it, you might want to check it out, and it's usdebtclock.org. And we've talked about how buying silver at $70 an ounce is a gift because the true value of how many dollars it should take to buy 1 ounce of silver is posted on usdebtclock.org. And today, the dollar to silver ratio per ounce for 1 ounce of silver, the true value of 1 ounce of silver is $1,474. And you can look it up, usdebtclock.org. And gold to the dollar is $11,645 per ounce. And I know you and I have talked about the reevaluation of currencies worldwide.
Oh, yeah.
And how, as humanity, how important it is to restructure the value of the currencies regardless of where you live to the true value based on the gold standard. Now tell me a little bit about the BRICS nations, because didn't they actually do that? Yeah,
so they're still in process with all of that. I think it's being held back from our mainstream media around the world about the truth about what's going on here. Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa were the original countries that actually put together BRICS. That's what the acronym. However, many of the Middle Eastern and many other countries have actually signed on to this whole entire process, and it's been kept really actually pretty quiet. But the whole point of the whole thing is if you're going to use currency, if you really want to use something that's actually valued, then you've got to back it with something that actually, in most cases, comes out of the ground or is some type of process to make something or put something together, I should say, in a way that it can actually be stored as value, as wealth. And in this case, we're talking about gold and silver, platinum, palladium, rhodium, the five majors that we deal with, when it comes to precious metals, or at least the ones that we actually show as being traded on a pretty regular basis. Also, really, the secondary metals should be in that same regard, particularly copper. But they're all being used so dramatically in AI and different computer-related technologies right now that all of them should be truly involved in that. In order to really have something, as far as currencies are concerned, in an economic system, it is incredibly valuable to have them backed by precious metals. This is what we always had until really 1933. For the most part, where FDR, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, actually decided to, we were put into bankruptcy then, and we've never really come out of it. That's kind of the whole point of fixing our economic situation, is by backing our currencies, or that which we use as money in this world. That's in a big quotes, by the way, because currency is currency, and it's not money, unless it is when it's backed by precious metals or something that actually is processed and comes out of the ground, something that comes out of Mother Earth. So that's where that whole concept comes down. We used to have notes that were actually silver certificates.
Right.
And we also had gold certificates.
Right.
And you could actually exchange back and forth all day long if you wanted to. You could go to a teller and say, hey, I don't want to carry all these coins in my pocket, which was, by the way, it's always been an issue from
because
the beginning
heavy.
of time.
Yeah.
Exactly. And convert it into this paper note. And you can exchange back and forth all day long if you really wanted to do that.
But then they took that away and gave us fiat currency, which wasn't backed by that gold and silver. And
Correct.
Therefore, that gave them permission to print as much money as they possibly want to fund their wars and their chaos on this planet.
It's interesting because during the war, particularly in the Second World War, which is really the last time frame, from 1941 or really from 1939, when you talk about the Nazis entering into Poland and starting to take over Europe, to 1945 when the war actually ended. During that particular time, all of the countries that were involved, particularly in Europe, were actually starting to remove precious metal from their coinage, their currency or coinage, that which could be used as money. And they started, particularly the Nazis, the German government, started removing all of that silver from, and they got aluminum coins and zinc and
copper,
all this garbage, right? So they could use that for the war effort, really, to build up their empire. But to the people, they get nothing.
We had
a
steel penny in 1943.
We did during that period of time, and that was actually really. They claimed that it was all about
the copper had to be for bullets.
Yeah, you use it for shell casings, because brass is made out of copper and tin.
What would our world look like if we took the war machine's budget and spent it on feeding and clothing the people?
Oh my gosh, it would be a totally different world, wouldn't it?
I think we got to get back to that. We've got to remove these criminal elements that are making decisions that say, hey, we're going to bomb them because they're not being a good boy and girl.
Well, I think it really comes down. I mean, we look at our government here in the USA, and it's a wreck. It's a complete disaster. I mean, I used to laugh when I was a kid. I watched the Japanese government, and these guys would literally be climbing over each other to, get at each other's necks, when they were in the government thing, and in England, for that matter, in Parliament, you would see them just sitting in there, very stoic in their seats, and and handling things, and they'd be arguing with each other, but and sometimes there'd be some kind of thing that would happen between them, but here in the USA, we don't have people climbing over each other to kill AOC or anything yet.
Well, I don't know. I think she's been threatened,
Oh, I'm sure she has. But my point...
Regardless of the point of view, that we've got to get back to the rules of kindergarten. Play nice in the sandbox.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, but here's the thing about the sandbox. It's just, what is the end result? If all we're going to do is just talk about stuff and actually not get anything done, what is that?
All right. So get back to the reevaluation of currencies.
Yeah. So
I think there's a fight going on. The cryptocurrencies, XRP. The banks put together this cryptocurrency, and they're trying to control it. And
one thing that people don't...
If it isn't attached to anything of value, how is that any different than fiat currency?
Back in 2017 and 2018, you and I were pretty heavily involved in cryptos when they really started peaking, and a lot of people started to get really involved in doing stuff with them. It was a very interesting time for us. We were trading and all kinds of interesting things. We were doing seminars in our store. We had 50 people at one point in our store. It was laid out like a little seminar room. And we were doing all this stuff. And then, it went up to about 9,000. And remember, it ran that period. It started around 300, went to 9,000, and then it crashed back down to about 4,500, about half of what that 9,000 was. And you and I made the conscious decision that we weren't going to continue to be involved in it.
You invest in what you know.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
We just didn't know. It was it's so new.
My whole point in all of that was that incredibly volatile. But people would come into our store and ask about XRP. Most people weren't aware, and in the early stages, they were talking, and they don't do this anymore. They don't tell you how these particular coins got started, these tokens and different coins. But I was very aware about XRP, and I was never, and still am not, a proponent of
peace with it.
Not at all. Look at who started XRP. It's very interesting. Santander and all the biggest banks in the world, mostly European, were involved in actually creating XRP. Well, wait a minute. So banks were creating XRP, which is supposed to be a non, it was basically a non-centralized. The concept of all cryptos to begin with was non-central. Created coinage.
You could send money to someone overseas without having to go through a bank.
Yeah,
you could,
but not
at
all
that point. How were they even using it? I don't even understand.
Not all. Well,
I mean, in many cases, at that time they couldn't buy anything with it, so it was just a digit on a
pretty
computer.
Much. But it was, I mean, my God, it was 42 cents forever. It seems like. We have one particular client that, dumped $600,000 worth of silver to buy, I can't remember what the amount he ended up getting was at that time, but it's gone down like 50 cents from where he invested in it. But you know what,
though? People could say that about gold and silver.
No, they can.
I bought it $99 and now it's only worth $68 or whatever.
It's just, I've never seen anyone really talk about.
It's what you buy it and you hold it.
You do. However, I haven't experienced XRP, gaining any substantial, sustainable
that's what
numbers.
People say about gold and silver.
This is true, but this is particularly interesting. So we only deal in physical precious metal.
Right.
Physical precious metal, folks.
Not the paper.
Not this garbage paper, or not some token or something that you have to have this, 46-digit, code in order to get access to, or to sell to
well,
someone.
And when you sell it, doesn't that create a tax event?
Well, sure it does if it's brought into U.S. currency, or any other, for that matter, because if it doesn't matter what currency you actually get it into, because if you want to use currency in the U.S. to actually purchase anything, you got a real serious problem. This is why a lot of people, you might have billions of dollars worth of Bitcoin, but unless you can, and the concept would be to utilize it by buying somewhere where they actually can take Bitcoin or any of the other.
With it, yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
But if that's
and
not
that's
the case,
same thing as gold and silver. I could take my gold or silver and purchase property. I mean, it's exactly the same.
I know some car dealers, Ferrari, Lamborghini, some of these high-end luxury, hypercar places. Some of them will take, the coinage, but there's still going to be some kind of a because you're dealing in states of government. So therefore, if the state, you just purchase something, you're going to get taxed on whatever that is. They don't care about how you paid for it.
Right.
They just care about how much the value was paid for it. In other words, some Bugatti could be $2.8 million, but you use Bitcoin to do it. Well, guess what? The state's still going to tax you on that transaction. You're going to end up paying, some level of tax, no matter how you do this.
You're not going to get around it. An investment is an investment. So why?
And I'm not a proponent of taxation at all, just so people know. But
we're not tax advisors. We aren't even financial advisors.
All I'm saying is that there's things that no matter what you use, the state that you're in, if you're in the USA or any other country for that matter, is going to come at you for whatever the tax liability is based on that.
So what are the headlines right now in August regarding gold and silver?
Well,
what are they talking about? Somebody was telling me something about something Wells Fargo did.
Well, Wells Fargo has always been kind of in trouble for quite some time. I mean, even though I don't like Elizabeth Warren, I'll never forget her going at the CEO of Wells Fargo here years ago when, they were pulling all. We used to have a Wells Fargo account, by the way, when we first started this business, and they were not nice to us at all. They shut us down for stupid reasons.
Well, there was no reason.
There really was. They never would give us an actual reason. They just said,
we don't want to do business with you.
Right.
That was their reason.
It's amazing to me how these banks get away with what they do. But Wells Fargo's got this notorious history behind them of manipulation and literally just doing all kinds of things that not.
What does that have to do with gold and silver?
Well, they've been manipulating price along with some of the Chase and some of the other major banks that we're seeing out there. So this has been going on forever. I mean, they're not as big as like a Chase Bank that's been working the system for an awful long time. As far as I think, whatever you think of Jamie Dimon, I will give him this, that his brilliance has been, particularly around silver. Nobody's done more to work the silver system than probably Jamie Dimon and his cohorts in Chase Bank. They've done a lot of things that that actually
benefit us, but also don't, because he crashes the market down and then that's when you buy in,
Right. Right. Exactly.
Buy in when he crashes it down.
Right.
So do you think we've hit our low for the year? Do you think it's going to go back down?
I don't think we're ever going to see these numbers that, people make comments about this, going down to 40 or maybe even 30. I really don't feel that we're ever going to see those numbers ever again. I don't think that the sustainability of those numbers it's not sustainable at those levels at all. In fact,
if they did crash it down to that, they're not going to leave it there for very long.
It can't be, and it would all be paper contracts too. See, that's the other problem with the whole entire manipulation process. When you're just a trader and you're dumping a billion ounces of silver,
they're dumping $1 billion in ounces or whatever, but they're pulling the physical silver out of circulation and they're stockpiling it because they know something's coming.
Yes, they are. However, there's an enormous amount of silver really still in the system, meaning that's been minted, that's being processed to be made into bullion.
I was under the impression that the stockpiles were being depleted.
They are. There's no doubt about it.
Okay.
I'm just saying that there's material out there that's being held by someone or some entity.
By people like us.
Yeah. There's material out there that's been held. I mean, this has really been going on for a very, very long time. As far as it's almost like coinage. Most people probably didn't really start doing this until the 70s. And when I say doing this, I'm talking about actually purchasing bullion. I'm talking about silver now. Not gold. Gold falls into a totally different category.
Why is that?
Well, because it's been held as wealth for a very long time.
Okay.
So in other words,
Silver's
in
money. 1933,
the U.S. government stopped actually minting gold as coinage or currency. So in 33, when FDR put the government basically into a bankrupt state, and he confiscated, the gold. A lot of that gold was shipped to Europe literally on ships back in the day, and it's still there. So there's a lot of gold.
It's still on ships?
No, it's still in Europe. it's still in Europe.
If it's still on a ship, it's at the bottom of the ocean.
We're talking about what's called a double eagle, eagles, quarter eagle, half eagle. That whole money in coinage form. All the other countries too, the sovereigns, the different coinage that was really up until that same period of time. It's interesting how much influence the U.S. government has around the world financially. There's major controls there through the Bank of International Settlements, which is actually bigger than the Fed. But the Fed seems to have tremendous power out throughout the entire nation, throughout the entire world. And so this concept of having gold and silver as money, was taken away from us. And really that's what the Fed's plan was all along. They had to do it very kind of quietly and softly, really up until 1971, where Nixon took us off the gold standard and put us on this ridiculous oil standard where you and I are supposedly trading oil. That was never the thing. It was basically big business that was basically running the world, and we weren't allowed to be a part of that because they actually took away. It was actually the South African government were the first ones to actually make gold available to the general public of the world. And then I think Canada was the next one to kind of come in and start doing that, and we really didn't bring gold back into the space until Reagan's era, about 1986, when they started the U.S. Eagle program, both in the gold and the silver. And so it's been a really amazing time period to be alive and to be involved in this. At least in our case, it's been a couple decades, being involved in this. But yeah, we will have a system that is backed by gold and silver.
And then that's going to skyrocket the value of a gold and silver stacker's investment.
Sure it will.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we get off this fiat centralized banking system, which there's been word out that basically we already are.
Well,
actually.
and I think that's kind of the thought pattern on a cryptocurrency with that blockchain mathematics being attached to something physical. It can be tracked from the mine to the processor, and they know exactly where it's going. Okay, this amount of gold went to chains and jewelry.
Yes, it has literally like a trackable DNA.
Yeah. So then, in that sense, I'm all for that kind of credit card or debit card, knowing exactly what it's attached to. My hesitation is the controls that they can have on that as to where you can spend it, where you can go, how far where you can buy gas, how far you can travel, the 5-minute city kind of thing. It's like it just feels like, well, if I have silver in my hand, and I can exchange that for whatever, there's no controls on that because you can go anywhere with it as long as you can carry it.
Yeah, absolutely. Going back to the DNA of gold or silver, both of them, I think is incredibly important for the end user, or the person that's actually holding the physical metal. I think that's an incredible thing that we really haven't had available in our world. It's all kind of quiet and mysterious about how these products come about. Different countries are heavily involved in mining and minting. The Swiss are known for actually minting. They have some of the greatest mints in the world, and the largest for that matter. Germans are involved in it too, as far as Europe is concerned. And, we in the U.S. are heavily involved. We have a lot of private mints, which is not like a big thing in other parts of the world, but in the U.S. it's been a very big thing. Again, ever since the 70s, particularly in silver's case, they started actually minting, bullion products, physical for the people. So this mentality and I would say about the bicentennial, about 50 years ago, is about when this whole concept of starting to collect and stockpile and put aside silver for your future. Those people now, they don't have any complaints, but they sure did, 10 years ago, when silver really wasn't, was being held down is really what's happening. It's not like its true value is $24,
right?
Or even 67 or 65 or 63, whatever we are today, right? These numbers are total manipulation, fake, and fraud. And so it's really time for us to start to look at where is that number and why is that number, And then when it really breaks out again, and it's going to happen again, you better be prepared, because if you don't want to be spending $100 for an ounce of silver, and I can guarantee you that you will. You will want to, because when gold goes to, and I've talked about this before and I have no problem saying it, goes to 600, 500, 600, and then $1,000 an ounce, it coulda, shoulda, woulda is not going to matter anymore, because look at where gold has gone. Forever, gold was about $24 an ounce for gold. And that was a lot of money back in 1935. And if you had a $20 gold piece in your pocket, which is considered a double eagle, you were pretty wealthy. That was some serious money back in the day. Well, that $20 gold piece is, just slightly under gold's value, which is around $4,300, I believe, right now where we're sitting. So let's say $4,200. Back in the day, $20 would buy you a class suit from just about any haberdashery, in New York City. Today, it will do the same thing. So, it's really things change, but they don't.
Yeah.
The true value of the intrinsic value of something can stay the same based on wherever the economics are, in the world at that time. That's a perfect example. And silver the same way, really, even right now. Oh my God, back in the day, we would have for a $60 ounce of silver, it was almost like if we were asking our client for a 50-cent premium back in the day, they were crying like little babies about that. Now, if we ask, $2, it doesn't seem to be much of an issue.
Yeah. Well, are there any headlines in the news right now that stand out in regards to
the biggest thing is the war in Iran. This thing's been going on for, I believe, we're pushing towards a year in October. If that's incorrect, I'm not. I stand corrected. But this is craziness. I mean, this thing just keeps going on and on and on, and the trustworthiness of the government of Iran has been tested over and over again, and
disappointing.
And it just keeps going back. I just heard a headline today on the news this morning that the U.S. has literally taken over the Strait of Hormuz.
Well, and those sweet Iranian people deserve relief.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
And they deserve support too, infrastructure and support, and
it's absolutely incredible that
pray for peace.
It's just incredible that they've had to put up with this for almost 50 years. When you and I were younger, 50 years younger, we actually watched them, murder the Shah of Iran, and on the news, and that was pretty shocking.
Yeah.
To see that. I'll never forget it. I was pretty young then and watching that. That government has gone downhill ever since that day. And I don't know. We've had Iranian friends, through the years, and some of the best people I've ever met. And, I can remember some of them going back to their homeland, and I always wondered why, their family's still there. I understood that, but how do you do that? You fly into Tehran.
Well, and are we getting the truth? I mean, we learned a huge aha moment. It's been rumored those dirty Americans, when you go overseas, and you visit different countries, the reputation of the Americans, it's because the news media says that we're a terrible country,
right,
and that it isn't safe to go visit. And then they exploit these horrible stories of the sweet couple that came to visit Florida and got into a sketchy area and were shot and killed and robbed, and and that's what they think of when they think of America, and it's not the truth.
No,
and
it's
so
not.
What have we been fed on these different countries?
Yeah, we're so blocked off from the truth about everything that's going on in our world.
Right. We hear horrible stories about what's going on in Africa, but is that really the case? I mean, maybe it's not. Maybe
I don't know. It just seems to me that every single government on this planet that we reside on is corrupt at some level. There just seems to be no getting around this. I mean, look at our election process, It's the most pathetic thing ever. I mean, the kind of people that we have in Congress right now, can you imagine these people being in there 20 years ago? It never would have happened.
Right.
These people that we have in office for the various different states in Congress right now are unbelievable.
Okay, so the state of the world is a mess, and it's very chaotic. Why gold and silver?
That's why gold and silver. Oh my gosh, you actually answered your question with your question, Mel.
Well, I don't know I don't know that our listeners are going to make the connection.
Well, I don't know. Okay, so number one, corrupt governments. Okay,
Self-sufficiency.
There's your number one reason.
Self-sufficiency.
There's your number one reason to actually hold precious metal. I don't care what they do with this fake number that they give you. If you hold something that's real,
you have
honest,
a little bit of self-sufficiency because they can't control what you do with that gold and silver. What could be more honest
than one bar of pure silver?
Yeah.
I don't. There's nothing that can compete with that.
Yeah.
Except for one bar of gold. I mean, as far as like valuation aspect of it, but even still, you get gold. We're in the 4,000s with gold right now. How many people do you know on the streets could make change for $4,000?
Exactly. Nobody.
Yeah.
Well, that's people what we that have, could, but you understand.
It's
one
ridiculous.
In 1,000.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's absolutely ridiculous. So silver, on the other hand, 60-something bucks. They may have $100 bill in their pocket. Hello, silver is the people's money. It's always been the people's money. Silver is the ultimate, basically, FU to the government.
Yeah.
This is why the government's been manipulating it.
It's not a quick flip. It's not. It's just. It's the slow and steady accumulation of precious metals over your workforce, and then you have a stockpile that will carry you through the rest of your retirement ages.
Absolutely. And we love it when, in the early days when we first started this store here, we've been doing this for over 20 years, but when we first started the store here about almost 15 years ago, we would have people coming into our store on a regular basis. And now, granted, of course, to, like you were saying before, $18, $19, $20, silver, a heck of a lot easier to pull out a $20 bill and get an ounce of silver than it is to take three of them out, three $20 bills, or even more than that now. But
we've had people that would come in once a month with $20 and get 1 ounce of silver. That doesn't look like much,
right?
But they do it consistently. Just like Dave Ramsey says, you pay that $100 into a 401k consistently, and by the time you're 65, But if you did that in silver, or even in gold,
in physical form, we want to emphasize that, folks. If you're, again, we're not financial advisors, we're not attorneys, we're not CPAs.
We just think it's common sense.
This is what we advocate as far as value for you. By buying physical precious metal, you always have a storage of wealth.
Now, speaking of buying, we don't know where you're from or where you're at. But be very, very careful if you're purchasing online. We're seeing a lot of fraudulent products out there. Develop a relationship with your local coin and bullion dealer. Vet them, and have they been there a long time? Have they been in the same location for a long time? Most likely you're going to be able to trust them and consult with them, get their opinions, and they may have some different ideas than we do. Go in there with your $100 and just...
Yeah, I mean, how cool it is to be able to still get an ounce of silver for under $100.
Well,
I don't know how much longer that's going to be a thing.
And we have people that will come in and they'll get 1 ounce of silver, and then they'll round up with constitutional silver, the coins, the quarters, dimes, and halves, to get their $100 worth of silver that month, whatever that is, or that week, or that day. Yeah,
to reemphasize that, in 1964, the U.S. Treasury stopped minting 90% silver coinage in quarters and dimes and halves. And the half dollar from 1965 to 1970 is actually 40%. Many people don't know that, so it's good to kind of reemphasize. But again, silver coinage is 1964 and earlier, quarters, dimes, and halves. That is something that people use for fractional transactions, which fractional, breaking up that ounce kind of concept. And amazingly, actually, coinage or what we call junk silver or coin silver or constitutional silver. It's all the same thing. The concept is being able to utilize it in a fractionalized silver ounce way. And so, and many
what's
people
a silver dime worth today?
Right now, I think you're around $4.50.
Yeah, what can you buy for a dime?
It's $4.50, and
if we were on the silver standard, one dime would buy you $4.50. That'd buy you a coffee or a gallon of gas.
No kidding.
Oh my gosh! What was it? 10 years ago, we were talking about a quarter being able to buy a gallon of gas. Mm-hmm. Now we're at a dime that would buy a gallon of gas.
Where a quarter can get you literally 2.5 ish. Gallons of fuel right now, and we're basing that on about $4.50 fuel, gasoline, and probably $5 per diesel at least.
That's a perfect example of why we say that gold and silver holds its buying power.
Absolutely,
because it doesn't matter what the fiat currency takes to get it. It's an insurance policy on your buying power, on your hard-earned life force energy to create financial wealth for your family.
It takes a tremendous...
And it's quiet, and it's private.
It takes a tremendous amount of energy, folks, to make 1 ounce of any precious metal, or even base metal for that matter.
I read an article once that said it took 250 tons of earth... Mm-hmm. in Africa to create enough gold for 1 wedding ring.
It could very well be.
Maybe for that particular mine. There's some mines that are probably more prolific, but think about that.
Yeah,
250 tons of earth for 1 wedding ring.
Let's not forget the fact that silver is a secondary, third, fourth underneath.
That was gold.
I know that was gold, but I'm saying that silver is not a primarily mined product in the world, and this is something that we can't emphasize this more than what we're attempting to do right now. It is rare. Silver is rare no matter what they want to tell you. They want to make it so prolifically available, which is interesting now since the price has increased. Yeah. All of a sudden
Wasn't there a time in our history where silver was worth more than gold?
Yes, there's been several times in history.
You think we're going to get there again?
I think that we're going to see. The word is out in many cases parallel. It could very much parallel. Look, guys, if we can only mine under 1 billion ounces a year of this stuff, more like around 760 million tons of this stuff. Think about that. We got the whole entire world that, or ounces, I should say. Let's say we can actually create 760 ounces, million ounces of silver. The demand is like 1.2 billion or 1.3. Hello?
So
there's something wrong here.
How's the COMEX keeping up with that then?
Well, they do paper contracts. That's how they keep up with it.
Well, no, but they're dumping the paper and pulling physical.
But here's the problem.
They're pulling more physical silver than they're producing. Where are they getting it?
They aren't.
Well, they're providing it. They haven't defaulted on the calls.
No, an enormous amount of the silver that actually was being provided was China. China was providing a huge amount of this silver. They're no longer doing that. There's no exports anymore.
What happens if they can't? Where are they getting it? How are they finagling the numbers?
Most of the silver is coming from Central and South America. Mexico is a primary provider of silver in the world, and Peru in South America is the other major area where silver is mined. In primary mines, it's a really big deal to be mining in a mine that you're primarily mining silver. It's a huge issue. These types of mines are the ones that are really producing the vast amount or the larger amount of silver that we need. The rest of the mining industry is basically supplying probably the bigger part of it, even as a third or fourth down the road. Mm-hmm. They're mining for copper, they're mining for zinc, they're mining for aluminum, all these other metals, and they're pulling all these, silver as well out of there.
But they're still not keeping up.
But this is really low-grade stuff, too. It takes an enormous amount of energy to actually create an ounce of silver when it's a secondary, third down the road, And if you've ever seen silver, it's a pretty ugly mining material. It's just gray, chalky stuff. It doesn't even look like it. Yeah, not at all. So, very interesting times.
Well, if it's wisdom and you're in the southern Utah area and you want to come and see us, we'd love to say hello and let us know that you saw us on this podcast.
Yep, we love our viewers and our commenters, and
we
no
wish
matter
you
what,
very, very best, and just buy a little, hold.
Yeah, really, from wherever you're watching us right now, don't feel at all shy about contacting us. We would love to chat with you, irregardless. I've had people call me from all over the nation. We're 435-703-9119. That's 435-703-9119. We're the Gold Ore Store in historic downtown St. George, Utah. And
it's spelled like the mining ore.
Yeah,
gold ore is O-R-E.
Yeah, the Gold Ore Store at gmail.com is our email address if you'd like to email us. You can actually go online, too, and check out our online site, too. It's goldorestore.com. That's Goldore store.com.
And if you see something on there you want to purchase, you'll probably have to give us a call. We're having little hiccups of
we're still working with it, but it is operating and operational, and so we're proud of that. And it's taken quite a long time to get this thing going, but yeah, please come see us. We love that you're watching us, and let us know that you're checking us out, and have
a fabulous day.
Yeah, have a great rest of the week, and we'll see you here as soon as we're able to.